Hey everybody, welcome back to the Metal Mill 52 workshop. My name is Bill, this is my shop. We're working on what you see here. We're getting almost finished with this project, but this is a riding car for the Raritan live steam locomotive, 3.5-inch gauge, designed by William Morwood. And you can still get the plans and castings in this construction book available from Tansky Model Engineering in Eden, New York. I've given the address and information out in the series. So in this episode, we'll cover the brake rigging and the fabrication of a lot of the parts that have to do with the brake rigging. And it's all done and installed, and it looks fantastic, and I hope you enjoy this episode. As always, please ask any questions that you might have. If you don't have questions but you want to inspire me, please give me a thumbs up, because that always encourages me to continue on. We're almost done. Like I said, the next steps will be planking this thing and just kind of finishing it out, and then we'll be good to go. We'll be done. So thanks everybody. Have a great week. I started to make the equalizers. Just took a piece of 1/8-inch steel, cleaned it off, scribed the outline of the equalizer on there, marked out the points, and then I made both of them. I've drilled the number 30 holes in each of them, so now I can just cut them out on the bandsaw and shape them with the belt sander. Not much to it. A fun way to get back at it. Alright, here's the equalizer parts with as much as I could bandsaw away. I just show this because obviously they're a long way from being finished, so I have to do a lot in the belt sander, and I just show it. I don't want people to get discouraged thinking that it's super easy. So it'll take a little time in the belt sander, and I'll bring you back when they're all cleaned up. next thing I need to make is the brake handle socket. It's a little lever assembly. Looks complicated. Let me show you. That's part number 3514. Not that complicated, really. Just want to start with a piece of 1/8" thick steel and just mark it out. Drill a couple of holes in here while it's still square. Machine it to size, obviously, and then I'll have to be able to cut it away. Obviously, it needs to be cut away like this for clearance when the handle is actuated, since this thing rides on the little brass rod that goes between these two brake bearings, if you will. So I've laid it out here on the piece of 1/8" thick steel, and this will be the number 30 hole, I believe. This will be a 5/16" hole for me to silver solder the little bearing assembly into. So cut it out next. Okay, we've got the part cut out, milled to size, and then I drilled the number 30 hole and then the 5/16" hole. And I've just laid out, kind of scribed out the cutaway portion. So now I'll go over to the bandsaw and cut it away. I'm not going to cut everything away. I'm going to leave a little rim there around so that for the soldering, silver soldering. The directions, plans don't really say, so couldn't hurt, I figured. Leave a little bit extra. And this part down here is the part will get silver soldered to the tube. So there we have it. Okay, here's what I hope is completed before silver soldering brake handle piece. As you can see, I left a pretty good amount of material to be silver soldered onto the little stub here. So clean it up. Before I silver solder it, I'm going to soak it in the kettle descaler that I use as a pickling solution. That will help a lot. It's already sanded and clean. I'll wipe it down with acetone and wipe it off, dry it off, and then soak it in the kettle descaler. I'm not going to do that right now because it would get very rusty. But I'll go ahead and make the round parts that I need to make in the lathe, and then we can. Now it's time for some fun on the lathe. First thing I'm going to do is make this little part here, basically the trunnion or the bearing that the assembly will ride on. So taking a piece of 3/8" steel, drilling a hole through it, and necking it down to 5/16 so it fits in this hole here for about a 1/4" length. And the second thing, I found a piece of 1/2" steel tube here that has a 3/8" hole in it, so it's perfect. I just need to cut it off, and I need to mill a little slot in it so that the handle can get silver soldered to it like this. Okay, this should be the final pass here. I'll take off the final couple thou. Make it. Let's see if I'm right on. Yep, 3.125, so should be 5/16. Let's see if this fits. There we go. Alright, so that's perfect. I'm going to get the file and clean this up with the file, then we'll drill the hole through and cut it off. I do have to reverse it, and I'll ream it out and clean up the back end. I knew when cutting off there's going to be a burr there, so I'll take the supply rod out, flip it around, clean up the back end, and then ream the 3/16" hole. All right, so we just, I flipped it around, trimmed off about 12 thou off the sides to get it to the exact right length, and then I reamed it out with a half-inch thou oversized reamer, and it makes a nice fit for the brass rod now. Let me take it out and show you the finished product. And I decided to clean up the ends of it a little bit with the, there we go, put a nice little bevel on both sides. So there's the finished product. This will get silver soldered to the plate that we made last night. Show like that. There we go. So 2 down. Now I'll work on put a 1/2" 5C collet in there, clean up that thing, mill it, and we'll get it ready. So we'll have a silver solder the socket on there. Okay, here we've milled a little 1/8" slot in the steel tube. Get ready to take it out using the 5C collet block. Take it out and take it back over to the lathe to trim it, finish it up. Alright, here we are cutting off the 1/2" steel tube. You can see I cleaned it up a little bit, a lot. It's got the little brass rod in there to catch it. And I did file the edges there. File that again real quick before it cuts off. One last thing to do before the silver soldering. I put the 3/16" rod in the brass rod in the lathe and smoothed it off a little bit, put it in the collet block here, the 5C collet block in the mill, and I used a little 1/8" end mill to make a flat, and then a little center drill to make a nice spot, and then the number 52 drill to make the hole for the cotter key that will go in there. So now we've got everything machined that we need to do for this part of the assembly, and we can go ahead and do the silver soldering. There's the parts outside the pickle, and I'm using some white Stay-Silv flux on it, and the higher temperature, the Safety Silv 45 for the silver solder. As you can see, I do it in Kozo style. I put the flux in there, and I've got a couple of little chunks. So now we'll just heat it up. I need to stop the camera and hook up my little mini torch. We'll see if that heat helps. I think I got the alignment good. Sure hope so. All right, here's the handbrake bracket. Silver solder is strong. Tried to twist it loose with my hands and can't do that, so it's not the prettiest job in the world, but I'm going to clean it up now, and I'll bring you back and show you what it all cleaned. And here's the fabricated part. Shined it up a little bit, used the Dremel tool with the little sanding drum and little buffing discs. So got it looking nice. I'm going to shoot a little primer on it and a little black paint just to prevent corrosion. You can see I've masked off the import. I made the brake handle out of a piece of aluminum, and I don't know if you see this or not. Let me turn the camera down a little bit. I rounded the edge already, and I've machined the other end to fit inside the socket. So what I decided to do is use my little homemade knurler, try to put a little knurl on the handle. So where's my, definitely want some fluid. And want to slow the RPMs down, so I'll shift it into 70 RPM. Let's see how we do. moving very, very slowly. Give it a little bit more. There we go. I don't want to put too deep of a cut on it. Something that makes it a little easier to handle. There's the bracket and the handle. We'll let the paint dry on the bracket and we'll put things together tomorrow. Alright, here's the parts we made over the weekend. That Barricade gun oil does a real nice job on the bluing. Here's what it looks like. Birchwood Casey. Sprayed it on both sides. I'll just buff that a little bit. So these were just raw steel and they look great. Blued and oiled. Like gun parts. So now we're going to put everything together for a test fit. I'll bring you back when we have. Here we've got the brake handle in place and the equalizer. It's in place with a cotter key. And what I wanted to do was to take some measurements. So this, the rod that connects these two equalizers is a fixed length rod. It has the ends are silver, the clevises are silver soldered on either end. All the other ones have one silver soldered and one adjustable. So I took some initial measurements, and sure enough, this one, it is 2 3/8 inch between that distance and that distance. And I've laid it out here. I'm not going to make this tonight, but you can see I set the center of the pin on 2 3/8, and then I laid this one where the center would be at the edge of the ruler, and I marked on the rod where I need to cut it so that it'll be at the right length if it's fully in that body there. So I'll make this one first, cut this off, clean those ends up and silver solder that. Then I can have it in place and I can take my other measurements and make the rest of the connection. Making good progress on the brake lines. I've fabricated, I made the short one first, and the second one I made was this one to connect from the handle to this equalizer. And the third one I made was this one here that connects from the front brake assembly to the fixed equalizer, if you will. And to just take up the slack, and I've already silver soldered this one and threaded this, as you can see. So it's all looking good. I'm ready to make the last one. I thought I'd kind of show my process. So I put the clevis on, you can see it right there. I put it on, it's not in with a cotter key, but it's in there. I put the rod inside, just bottomed it out against the little lever, and then ran the rod through the little hole here. And now I can just set it against the equalizer, and I can mark where I want to cut it off and how much I need to thread it. So I'll just mark that with a magic marker, and then I can remove it, and then I'll cut it right about here, and then thread it a little bit deeper than it needs to be, because I might put some little lock nuts on there. And then once it's cut to size and threaded on the end, then I'll just remove this one, remove that clevis there, silver solder that, pickle it, clean it up, and then I can, test the final assembly. So I'll bring you back when I've got all that. All right, I've got the fourth and final rod installed there. Nothing's installed permanently yet because I want to put lock nuts on all of these threaded shoulders just to add a little bit of extra rigidity. And I don't have any cotter keys in here yet, but as you can see, there's just enough room here that the trucks can move. But let me show you this. This is very cool. So sliding it back and forth just with my hand here, and all I got to do is like touch the brake handle, and it locks the brakes right away. So very excited about this. I mean, it's a really neat design. It looks a little complicated, I guess. The trucks certainly were with that whole 15-degree angle thing, but the equalizers and all are not really that complicated, and the angles all seem to work out. So what can I say? I'm really happy with this. But so that's tonight. Here we are with the brake rigging all installed and cotter keys installed here, so it's all secure and as advertised. It works great. Let me just pulling that lever just a little bit tightens it up, but there is enough room here, and the trucks, they can move, you know, they can pivot. So very cool design. Really happy with how it all came together. I'll flip it over in a second so you can see underneath, but the brakes were pretty intricate. I got to confirm that for sure, and also compliment the design. I think it's a pretty good design. It seems to work fine. Of course, we'll really know when we get it out on the track. Let me take the brake handle out. Here's the aluminum handle. The plans call for this to be made out of steel, but I don't think it makes much difference. I just happen to have a piece of 1/2-inch aluminum. I kind of tip it up here and you can see. I'll just do a slow pan of the camera. It's kind of what this channel is all about, letting people see how everything goes together. Let's see, I've got all the cotter keys in there. There we go. I'm really happy with how that came out and how this thing looks overall. So this is going to be the last segment of this week's episode, and I think for the whole project, what we'll do is we'll come back, and this week I'll be working on planking it and basically finishing out the riding car, and that'll be the final episode for this series. I've got some great projects lined up. Working on the Allen mogul here. So if you're a live steamer and the 7.5-inch gauge, projects will be coming soon. Alrighty. As always, thanks for watching. If you have any questions, please ask. If you don't have questions but you enjoyed it and you want to inspire me to keep making these videos, please just give me a thumbs up, because I do appreciate that. Thanks everybody. Have a great week.